Right folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join us in Scotland here, and today's a special video because today we've actually come to the Montrose Air Station Heritage Centre, and this is a special, this was the first operational military site, first operational military airfield in the UK, and that's back in World War One. This place has been around since before the RAF was even like a thing back in the day, and there's some real interesting stuff around here, including I'm seeing over here a replica of a Spitfire, and there's some proper genuine aeroplanes here used in the war, folks. So yeah, this might even end up being a couple of videos if there's enough stuff to see. You know how it is on this, and we'll obviously update you with more interesting history about this site as we make our way around. But look at this, this is like a radar site, or a radar machine here. This was just basically the first thing I looked at as I came over to do this intro. And wow, it's so cool to see. And then look at this over here. This aeroplane is actually one of Britain's only jet fighter planes used in World War II. It's called a Gloucester Meteor. And this is incredible, folks. Look, this is the real genuine article. These planes were flown by the RAF in World War II, but not over enemy lines, because Britain didn't want to lose their early jet technology to the Germans, and that was the reason these were more used for intercepting over British airspace in the war. And then look at this side, folks. It's a Supermarine Spitfire, and just check the size of it. These planes is what Britain was famous for in the war, the Supermarine Spitfire, and they were used for years and years after the war too. Look at this, folks. This is a bell that the airfield would have rang when the pilots had to run to their planes. Ring the bell and run like hell, it says. And this is basically what a lot of the buildings on the airfields would have looked like. Often the airfields we visit are the stone buildings, but a lot of the wooden buildings like this are just too far gone from the places I go. You can see the tape on the windows, and that was so if there was a bomb blast or whatever, the glass didn't go flying in and little particles and damage people inside. Anyway, let's head in, folks. For this adventure we're joined by family and friends again. Shout out Tam's brother as well, he watches the adventures, folks. He gets a shout out each time we're on these wee missions to the local museums and stuff. Here we go, this is Tam, folks, and look, he's in the RAF hat here, and this is how he would look if he was a gentleman in the Second World War. There we go, folks. Check this out, folks. This is like the dashboard out of the plane. It's so interesting to see. Look at all the different gauges and stuff. Oh, is that a German plane? It's off of Messerschmitt Bf 109E, the German plane. Yeah, this one here is the Spitfire. Wow. Gives you an idea of what they were looking at when they were flying. No. Check this out, folks. There's a book here, and this is from the pilots when they were making their flights, and the Spitfire tells you if it was a patrol, a scramble, or whatever else they were doing, which is an interesting part of the history. Look at that, folks. In there is the 20mm cannon shell there from the Mark V Spitfire, and then that's the bullets from the American fighters and bombers in the middle, and then the top one is from a Browning, 303 from a Browning, from a Mark I Spitfire. And that'll be the difference between the bottom from the Mark V. Look at this, folks. This is an air raid shelter here, and this we've been in some actual abandoned air raid shelters over the years, so this gives you an idea. This is where the air warden would come in the event of like an air attack from the German army. The German Air Force, sorry. And look at this, this is like a little office. Wow. And then look at this, the blackout time. He must have set this clock for people to, so they would know what time they had to black out their windows. And look, this is what the ROC had traditionally. I'll shine my torch here so we can actually see, folks. It's actually a bit of a shine off the torch, but look, it tells you the shape of the planes. The ROC had a thing like this all the way up until the Cold War, which is quite cool. And yeah, this is the room where we looked at the dashboard. The interesting thing, folks, with this Spitfire guns, a little interesting fact I just learned, and it's good to share on the video, the wee red covers on the guns, they would, in the event of the guns being used, they would come off. So then when the person landed, they would know that the guns needed like re-armoured and then put back, like made ready for the next flight or the next patrol. That was the way that they knew, and you can see on even the model, it's got the wee red lids on the front of the guns. So this is interesting, folks. The first Spitfires were actually invented in 1935 to take part, this is what they looked like, and they were to take part in the Schneider Trophy, which meant they had to land on water and stuff, and it performed so well, it actually won. So then they actually created it into this, which was the Mark I Spitfire, used in the need, they were needing a plane basically for the war, and that was the most ideal candidate. And they knew it was already a performance aircraft from back in the days of the Schneider Trophy. Look at the thickness of this glass here, folks. Absolutely incredible to see. And that was obviously to try and deflect the bullets or whatever if they were taking fire. Which is amazing to see, it's like an inch thick or more. Look at this, folks, this is the station commander's office, and this is how it would have looked in World War II. We can see the picture of the king up in the corner here, and the gentleman's coat hung in the corner, and even the old newspaper for back at that time. It's so interesting to see the old radio as well. It's cool to see when they've got it set out how it would have been, and then the tape on the windows to stop it shattering in the event of an attack on the airbase. And the interesting thing, we watched a little video, and the airbase did come under bombings in the war, because at that time it was a training airfield and it came under heavy attack twice, causing death and despair here. Check this out, folks, this is an actual map, well, a 3D map here of the airfield, and we're roughly in one of these buildings here just now, which is super interesting. Over at this side you can see they've had fuel storage area and stuff like that, things that I have seen. I do apologise for the shadows here in the shot, but I have documented RAF World War II fuel storage areas at places like Ford Airfield, and that's what this is meant to be here in the corner. And then you can see the yellow underbelly of the plane, folks. That's apparently the training planes for the practicing of the pilots. And then the standard planes were more normal. And this is just a small portion of the whole airfield here. This is more the hub, the corner we're at, where all the main buildings were. Look at that, folks. Under there is aircraft recognition models, so that the people could get familiar with what they were basically looking at. All the different types of aeroplane. German aeroplanes, that is. And it is interesting just to see the amount of variation. And then look at the old camera. The pilot would have been hanging over the side of the plane with a thing like that back in the day, trying to get the key footage maybe of the enemy's airfields and stuff. And then look at this, the model we just looked at. It's just this small corner here of what is actually the massive complete airfield, which I have explored in quite a lot of detail previously. But look at this is like the little airman's house here. Like, this must be the uniform of the time. Yeah, look, I better keep it moving, folks. Look at the 50s mirror. Anyway, let's keep this moving. Here we go, all out pillbox, folks, in its original glory. Unlike a lot of the pillboxes we visit, folks, they're actually obviously abandoned and empty. So it'd be cool to have a look at this scene, painted in the original camo colours. So check this out, folks. This military pillbox was actually used as their backup communications site if they came under attack and they couldn't actually make it to the battle headquarters bunker, which I have documented the location of further along the airfield on a previous video. This is where they would actually control the operation of the airfield from here for the defence. And look at this, there's some interesting, I've been to these ones before at Ferry Den as well on a video. The reflection of the light there is not the best. Look at this where it's been shot up by the bullets, folks. Look at the holes. Armoured plate. That shows how far in they go. Yeah, this is also along the North Esk. This one here I've never been to. It's on the roadside opposite Montrose airfield. I'm going to have to try and have a look for that. Wow, folks, look at the old phone. This is probably where they would be doing their communications. Look, there's the NATO phonetic alphabet right there. And then once again, like, you can get the pictures of the bombers. Wow, folks. It is interesting to see. There's so much little nuggets of the history in here. I'm just going to record as much as I can as we walk around. I'm obviously giving like a basic rundown on the history here. Look, the hexagonal machine gun post. In previous videos I've said machine gun bunker and people correct me and say no, it's a pillbox. But literally they were the machine gun bunkers of their eras. And look at this, this is actually an Anderson shelter, which a lot of folk would have actually built one of these in their garden back in World War II, and then they covered it over with earth. And then often if there was an air raid, you would hear the local air raid siren going off. Everybody would run into a place like this, and then they would hide until the air raid siren fell silent. And then check this out here, folks, this is super cool. Look at the size of this anti-aircraft gun right here, folks. And it's actually a Bofors L4070, 40mm caliber, 240 rounds per minute, and it's got a 4-kilometre range, so 2.5 miles you can be shooting aircraft and stuff down. Just look at the size of it. It's a real piece of kit right here, folks. The sun's at quite a poor angle today. Obviously the winter sun in Scotland, folks, it makes it quite difficult for recording things. Wow, what an amazing bit of kit. I just love seeing stuff like this, folks. Genuine anti-aircraft gun right there. And then check out this pillbox as well from this angle. An interesting detail the gentleman was telling us here. This is actually an old ring which was brought from the Montrose harbour defences when they were redoing the harbour. This is the old cannon ring which has been laid on top of this pillbox. And that's actually where the cannon used to rotate around. That's a bit of a runner. So that's interesting. These are all the old like hangars and stuff at this side. There's a real mixture here of basically the wartime buildings. I'm not sure where everybody else went. I think everybody else headed down here, folks. Look at this, folks. This is the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines that were fitted to many of the famous British World War II planes. Lancaster bombers, I'm sure. Obviously the Spitfires. This here is the massive supercharger. And look at this, the big engine, man, it's so cool to see. 4 valves per cylinder. And I'm sure they're a V12 engine. And look, it says it generated 2,160 horsepower. And it's so interesting to see. Oh, it tells you about the different Merlin engines actually. Originally 790 horsepower. And that must have been they developed and changed them, added superchargers, added 2-stage superchargers as well, which is so cool to think about that history and the technology invented for the war. And look at this here, a Bristol Hercules engine. And look at this, this is obviously a radial engine here with the pistons around the outside. And you can see each piston how it's staggered. Wow, look at this, the back of the engine, man, that's just mad. All those pipes and stuff. And look at this is the cockpit here with what must be like the ejector seat right there. It's such a mad mixture. This is quite a mixed up video of me just looking at all these different knickknacks. Look at this, folks, this is a Rolls-Royce Spey RB163 jet engine. Look at it. They've got it opened up so you can really see inside. All the impellers, all the different fuel injection systems right there. Wow, what a crazy thing, folks, look at this. Obviously Rolls-Royce, famous the world over for their quality jet engine construction, or all engine constructions really. And look at this, this is a training aircraft here, you can tell because of its yellow belly. And then look at this one here, this is interesting. Look, it's got the machine gun up on the roof. The pilot would probably have to stand up to fire that gun on top of there. Look at the propeller, it looks like we've just made that in the shed at home. It's a replica SE5A, which is safer. Wow. Well, that must be the exhaust. Oh, it's a Rolls Royce as well, V4 by the look of it. And look, it's got a wee dynamo powered by a little fan. And then these machine guns are timed so they didn't wipe out the propeller as they fire.
Top of the propeller.
Oh aye, that one there can actually clear the propeller because it's higher up. And then this is the old RAF colours here for back in the day. Look at this contraption here. So all this stuff, folks, this is for if you crash land your plane at the sea. And this is the plane that they used to go and rescue folk with if you had crashed at the sea. This is like an emergency radio that if you turn the handle on top it would put out a Morse code. What's this thing here, AKR? AKR's featuring once again in this one,
This is
folks.
a Link trainer. This was the world's first flight simulator.
Wow, check it out, folks. The first ever aeroplane flight simulator right here.
Mechanical. And the desk at
Wow.
the front, at the front, when the guy flies the aircraft, depending on how he inputs the controls, moves this thing on the map.
Oh, and then the thing can actually read,
Yeah.
well, it looks where it's going. That's a super interesting bit of kit. Look at that. Tells you how many knots and stuff you're going on that gauge.
And a lot of it was operated by time.
Look, here's the wire loom, the diagram,
They were
schematic.
designed by a company who made pianolas, self-playing pianos.
Oh, right.
So a lot of the things are operated by vacuum.
Check it out, folks. Get in the comments if you could wire this system up.
It's all bells is here, because it was designed by a pianola company. Well, yeah, that's right.
Check this out, folks. Here's more aeroplane engines here. Rolls Royce. This one's a de Havilland Gypsy 6. And look, it's a 6-cylinder unit. Wow, folks. De Havilland Gypsy engine. It's like these ones are actually upside down, but I'm not sure if that's how these aeroplane engines were always mounted, with the crankshaft up at the top. Wow, folks. And look at this unit here. It's a de Havilland Vampire. And look at this old sea mine. Yeah, folks, these are old magnetic mines. I'm sure if you hit one of these, it would go off. Yeah, and often these are still washed up through the war, floating about in the sea. Now look at this for a fighter jet. Imagine this thing, folks, the Royal Navy. I'm sure they had the way the wings are like that. That was so they could get lift off the short runways, or like when they used to take off boats with these things. Yeah, look at the cockpit, it's mad. The way times has changed since things like this were created, folks. Look at these air intakes as well. That's insane, folks. I've seen videos and it's amazing just to see this in the flesh. I've seen videos of these things flying about. Yeah, it's just got that classic style. 1944. Mass production of the aircraft was actually finalised. Oh, look, there's some interesting things about it there, look. Maximum speed 538 miles per hour, built in 1954. Oh, look, there's the cannon holes there where the guns would have fired out. 4 cannons underneath it. So interesting, folks. This is one of the coolest planes at this place. Look at this wee plane here, folks, at the end of the lineup. The little engine on it. Must be a scary thing if those engines cut out. That looks like it's got a gun mount at the top. So it shows it is a genuine...
So that you fire over the top of the propeller.
Yeah, you must have had to stand up to fire these guns. Sometimes. Look at that, folks. That's actually a bit of the panel from a Hanley Page Halifax, which crashed during the war. It's a heavy bomber, and it actually crashed. Interestingly, it was recovered from Edsall Woods, and I have recorded the World War II abandoned history at Edsall Woods as well, so that's cool to tie that bit of history. And British aircraft was coming down in the land, as well as the German ones that were getting shot down. It's amazing just to see the construction with all the rivets and the thin aluminium plate. Look at this, folks, there's another little, looks like a flight simulator or a trainer, and look, it's got a wee video playing. Must be so youngsters and that can get an idea of flying. I've seen all these devices. Just imagine literally flying in one of these and having to keep an eye on all these little devices and try to make adjustments, the pedals and all this stuff, folks. One of the coolest things to get a shot in would be a fighter jet. It'd be an incredible thing. Alright folks, I've made it here. I'm a fighter pilot, finally. Here I am in my plane. Check it out. 12,550 horsepower this thing here, folks, and that gives you an idea of the power difference with a jet engine compared to some of the old piston engines from back in World War II. That's how far the technology moved, and that's the speed it moved as well, and hardly any time at all. They went from having limited horsepower to having incredible horsepower. Look at this, there's some aeroplane parts even here. All these areas now are modern industrial buildings at the far side. That was all originally the World War II airfield. Look at this, folks, here's some super cool, this is called a Camel, this plane. And look at it, it's just amazing, eh? See that, folks, it's got the twin machine guns at the top, and they were actually on a timed device so that they didn't shoot the propeller off the front. Because obviously the propeller goes in front of the machine guns. So there's a system in there so they can't fire when the blades are in front of it. And look, there's just loads of interesting knickknacks under here as well. Look, that's, looks like a flat gun of some sort. Oh, it's a photo gun. It's a Mark III photo gun. That was probably for them, like, taking pictures from the planes, looking at the enemy airfields, doing their reconnaissance. Wow. And then look at this plane here, folks. It's a BE-2A aircraft. Check it out, folks. Look at the way this plane, I'm not going to touch it because obviously it's been restored, but look how it's made of the cloth. And then they put the stuff on it to shrink it. And even look at the wheels. They've got the cloth like hubcaps. And the old engine, folks, it's just amazing. The size of these wings, the way they relied on these crude planes back in the day to win the wars, fight the wars. That's not so long ago. History's moved on so much since these were the main planes of the RAF. These were the latest technologies of warfare at a certain time. Compare that to the modern, like, fancy fighter jets. It's just crazy to think how far they've come. Another interesting thing with this one, look at the way that these rear rudders are controlled. It's got the crude wires leading on into the cockpit. And just think, as you're moving those wires, it's just mechanically moving all this. Even the Spitfire and stuff will have similar operations. It's just they're covered by like the metal of the bodywork, but it is all of mechanical origin. Now, like nowadays, where it's like solenoids and wiring looms controlling everything. Wow, the size of this plane is incredible. Even the cockpit of it looks like some fine Victorian dressing table or something. And then this aeroplane here is just amazing as well. I love the colour of the old British planes. I can see inside, it's just like a straw seat, weaved straw. Wow. And then look how these are linked with the wire between, so they both move at the same time. Look at this, folks, this is what the nurses would have worn back in the wartime. Uniform of Queen Alexandra's Imperial Military Nursing Service. Check this out, folks, we're now in this other hangar here where this plane is currently undergoing serious restoration. And look, it's an Avro Anson, the Faithful Annie, and it's a TX226 restoration project. And look at it. It's some size of a plane. Look at the airframe here, all of wooden construction. Look, they're putting each little individual bit back in. Wow, just imagine going through the air and a thing like that, looking at the wee window. And often planes had round windows, because it prevented cracks from occurring in the corners. And look at the cockpit, they've got balls on there to stop dirt going into the pipes of the different systems.
The gaiter's got laces on it, look, to keep it together.
Oh aye, it's a proper little gaiter, it's like a boot. Now look at this must have been for clipping something in.
Yeah.
Wow, look at the steering wheel. Real history here, folks, like never seen before. This is the sort of thing that was flying around at the airfields we visit on this channel, and that's how it's cool with this video, just to show the other side of where all the things from those airfields have gone now into museums like this to be saved, to be restored. And it's a special thing. That it's a pity that some of the airfields also couldn't be saved or restored and maybe kept as a bit of a museum. The heritage and the amount that was done for the war back in the day, it's almost lost. Things like this are the last remains, keeping that history alive. Look down here, folks, there's actually a couple of propellers here which must have come from like crashed planes and stuff. Look at them, they're made of that aluminium. And then check this unit here, it's bent from the propeller, must have hit the ground when it landed, when it crash landed. Right folks, that's the first part of my Montrose Air Museum video. I don't want to make it quite long, so there's still more to see in another hangar. So I'm going to end this first episode here, folks. Tune in again soon for the next scene, when once again we're at the Montrose Aerodrome, finishing off this incredible visit here to this place. And obviously there's a lot more little knickknacks to see, so tune in again soon. I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye from me, goodbye from AKR and all the family and friends that join us today, folks, and we'll see you soon.